Pretty sure we're all aware of what happened in Washington, D.C. yesterday. I'm not entirely convinced that the more violent aspects of that protest were entirely due to Trump supporters. I mean, we all know that with these kind of things, inserting some sort of left-wing provocateur to sort of push the crowd in a direction that's more convenient for certain political factions in the United States is not at all unheard of. Pallets of bricks for anybody, right? So, the Capitol was stormed. I guess a few people were killed, which is terrible, though. When you storm the Capitol of the United States, I can't imagine what you would expect to happen to the contrary. So I should start off by saying that I'm opposed to political violence. I think it's interesting that people who also claim to be opposed to political violence openly endorse and support the actions of BLM across the United States, which in the wake of Fentanyl Floyd's death caused dozens of deaths and billions of dollars in damage. They go and do some stuff like that, and all of a sudden it's time to have a national conversation about racism, which is a largely made up problem in the United States. However, every time there's about to be a Trump rally, almost all of which are nonviolent, there's all these calls about extremism and this, that, and the other, and nobody should listen to these Trump people, and it's all, it's very, very one-sided. It should be obvious to anybody with two brain cells to rub together, but I understand if you sort of come up in the matrix and never take the time to sort of, reanalyze or look at the positions and things that they say are true, that, it's pretty easy to fall in line with what's being parroted or with what's being said by the mainstream media, And it's like, where's the conversation about the grievances of Trump supporters? We started getting fucked over in this country with shit way back in the 60s, in the name of Hart Celler, and then longer and more so in the 90s with shit like NAFTA, which was a horrible deal for the United States, the people that live here. Again, if you're somebody who lives here and you're in the working or middle classes, for our oligarchs, the people that really run the show, it's a great deal because they get to produce the same products which are sold at a high price in America that are much cheaper to produce because the labor's done overseas. And it's like we get one riot from Trump supporters and everybody loses their fucking mind. Again, to compare that to the BLM riots that took place across the country, caused way more deaths and caused billions of dollars in damage, it's pretty minimal. And again, we have to wonder, to what degree were agent provocateurs used to sort of agitate the people that were there. Let's maybe think about that, because it's like the mainstream media is out here talking about how Trump's going to do this coup, how Trump's going to do that, when, they'll say shit like that after Twitter goes and deletes a video he posted about being peaceful. When they delete his posts calling for peace, all the guy did was say, hey, let's have a rally. What is wrong with that? So Trump can't say, hey, let's have a rally, but congressmen and women, mayors and the like can literally do nothing to stop BLM riots in their cities and openly promote that sort of activity, So the fact that Twitter removed anything that Trump has posted now or in the past should send chills up your spine, because it basically indicates that our tech oligarchs have more political power than the goddamn president of the United States. That is fucked up. I don't care if you're on the left or the right. It's fucked that the president can be censored for saying things that aren't even that outside of the norm by anybody, never mind a single company. It's kind of insane how small relative to its like market cap, I guess, that Twitter is, yet they wield power over the fucking president of the United States, who used to be the most powerful man in the world. Now it's this conglomerate of tech monopolies that's, that should scare the shit out of you, regardless of what happened yesterday, and what's probably going to continue to happen, now that it's basically official that we Trump supporters got fucked by a fraudulent election. And it's not like Twitter, along with their MSM cohorts, are totally innocent in creating this. They helped to create a mess by refusing to disavow Antifa and BLM violence. They have basically glossed over the rampages that have taken place in cities all over the United States while they sit here and literally go apeshit over a largely peaceful Trump rally that was totally justifiable. So I think it's pretty obvious by now that our society is sick from the bottom to the top. I mean, the corruption is evident even with local politicians as it is with the federal ones. Nobody really gives a shit about the country. This is kind of like late empire shit where it's like, okay, just go ahead and pillage it for everything that you can because this superpower is going down. And why would some guy that's making six figures being, let's say, a city manager, even rock the boat a little bit? Fuck that. That's a gravy train. 6 figures for doing nothing but ostensibly supporting LGBTQ people. I mean, hey, that's great. And it's like, all of this shit is a complete joke to the people at the top. Millions of people have been alienated by the fraudulent election of 2020. They're constantly insulted, called racist, stupid, attacked for thinking what they do, and you're surprised that they're acting out a little bit. What else are you supposed to do when peaceful rallies don't work, when elections are fraudulent, when the establishment is openly supporting political violence in the form of Black Lives Matter rallies? It really doesn't leave you with much recourse. So it's like, let's not forget the fact that economically, if you are a Republican, it's a bit more likely that you're going to be a worker or a small business person of some sort. All those people were needlessly and completely destroyed without any benefit in the wake of the, what basically amounts to a giant scam in the name of COVID. So it's like, these people, they don't give a shit about black people outside of their utility as useless idiot rioters during BLM protests and what have you. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about the little guy. They don't give a shit about the middle class or the upper middle class. All they give a shit about is their group of buddies at the top who are linked with China, all sorts of agent provocateurs, all this other bullshit on the side. And, they may pass off that they kind of care with their stance on BLM, but they don't. They're just useful in helping to foment the sort of civil disobedience and everything that, uncivil disobedience, I suppose now, that has gone on and is truly and really putting the U.S. in a very dangerous spot. I don't think historically, for decades we've been in a position that was this precarious with everything that's gone on, and not even just from a political standpoint. If you look at what the Federal Reserve did to the U.S. dollar, I mean, economically, I think we're looking literally over the precipice of a fiscal cliff that's going to cause a crash and calamity that will at least be as bad as the Great Depression, but stands a pretty high likelihood of making that look like a fucking cakewalk. So when you add that coming around the corner to the fact that we now have purely Democratic leadership from the House to the Senate to the top, I mean, things in the United States are about to be very, very fucked up and very, very bad. And the sad part is all these people that think they're doing the right thing and acting in the right way, literally just because the mainstream media told them to, are going to get fucked too. So to close out, I'll say that adherents to mainstream media, because that's what they really are, basically live in a world of delusion, kind of as I touched on earlier, but they're constantly fucking lied to. So I think it's important to have a little bit of sympathy for them in that regard, but that really doesn't excuse the kind of damage that they're causing to the social fabric and the standard of living that we all enjoy. Obviously the status is a superpower, but there's a lot of people that live in the United States that are totally fine with the idea of spreading power out across countries because they don't understand that the United States is the only country that will willingly kind of give up power like that. When we spread out power to, say, China, it's never Russia, but when we spread it out to, say, China, do you think, are they about inclusivity and egalitarianism? No, they're the literally most authoritarian dictatorship that we've ever seen in human history that is responsible for egregious human rights violations. But again, the mainstream media doesn't talk about that, so these people are very much unaware that's the case. And so to look at the events that took place, especially in 2020, and act confused as to why there's anger and frustration on behalf of Trump supporters is ridiculous, and part of this whole, quasi-feminine scheme of dismissal that we've been seeing with respect to otherwise peaceful gatherings, not particularly just this one on DC. So it's like, I've said it once and I said it again, guys, dark times are ahead, and get ready, because this shit is not going to get any easier or any better anytime soon.